Steph and I are going to do our top 10 favorite plants at the Giberson Garden. We're here near the very end of April as you're watching this, and we could come back in 2 weeks and we'd have a completely different top 10 list. There's so many different things to show off in this garden. But I'm going to start this thing off and with the red Buckeye that's in the background. This is about as big as you'll see red native Buckeye. These are native to the Southeast United States. This one's in full flower right now. We're in Athens, Georgia as we're filming this, and I think they're actually native a little south of here. So the southern half of Georgia is where you would typically find them. There is a yellow flowered form, I think that occurs more in Texas, and then there's some intermediates between the two where you'll get shades between yellow and red. The red Buckeye has the absolute perfect tubular flowers for a lot of our native pollinators, plus hummingbirds. Hummingbirds will definitely be drawn to that. They're arriving back into the area. No coincidence about the time this thing is blooming in late April. You'll get a fruit that forms toward the end of the season. It's about an inch long, kind of light brown coloration on that from these beautiful red flowers. This thing has such beautiful foliage and such beautiful bark and just a great low understory tree. It really doesn't need to flower, but it comes into full flower like that. It's just tremendous. I don't see how any other small ornamental flowering tree could actually beat our native red Buckeye. And again, Loram has limbed this up into a tree. You'll frequently see them in shrub forms as well. Just to the left and down, there happens to be one of the white Buckeyes. They tend to bloom more in the summertime. It's got the flowers are starting to spike up now on it, but they typically bloom a little bit later. There's number one.
One of my favorite places to be in the world is at Ram Giberson's house. It's such a beautiful place, so it's pretty easy to come up with a bazillion plants that I love here, but I'm going to talk about strawberry begonia right now. It is not a strawberry and not a begonia, but it's a shade ground cover that tends to be evergreen. It's like a 6 to 9 plant, so I suppose in 6 it would be more deciduous than in say 9. Ours this past year did die all the way to the ground. We did have a quick cold snap, so I'm not surprised. Also, I will say nothing doesn't look good with it, kind of. It has such great texture with the variegated leaves. The flowers are a bonus, and we're here at a time when they're flowering. But if you put a large leaf hosta or a juga or any of the other kinds of ground covers with it, it just makes such a great color and texture contrast. One time, I will say I was with a friend and we went to a great place north of Raleigh called Cedar Creek Art Gallery. And they usually sell some little small cups of things that a lot of times they'll get off of their own property. And I got a couple other colors of leaves in the strawberry begonia. So there are some other cultivars out there that are quite beautiful as well. So I love it. I think it's a gorgeous plant. It can be, it moves by stolons, so you can have more than you wanted at some point if you're not careful. So you have to do some culling at some point, but it's so beautiful in a large amount as well that how can you go too terribly wrong? Such a great plant.
I literally have hundreds of plants to choose from. So you're going to go, why is he choosing Nellie R. Stevens hollies for this video? I'm choosing them because of the way that she has turned these into these 2 lollipops that are above my head. Typically, Nellie Stevens is used as a screening plant or a corner foundation plant, very typically, and it's limbed all the way to the ground. So this pyramidal shaped holly here would just be pyramidal all the way to the ground. But with like so many things in this garden, it's a little bit shady, and so things stretch a bit. And when they stretch a bit, they get a little thin at the bottom, and she looks at that as opportunity. So everything gets limbed up in time, and then things get planted around them. But the effect of 2 things that are very full and pyramidal being limbed up is they turn into these little lollipops. One thing she does in this garden, and you'll see it in some of the walkthrough videos or longer content videos from this garden, is that when you transition from one area to the other, there's usually 2 plants that are kind of formal to enter you into the new space. So there's nothing formal about this garden, but you always know that there's going to be a plant on each side of the path at a spot that transitions to something else. I think it's a unique technique for differentiating spaces. And in this particular spot are 2 Nellie R. Stevens hollies. These have the berries forming on them from this year. They bloomed a few weeks ago. Berries are already forming. A lot of times with Nellie R. Stevens, you'll get last year's berries will still be on them and red while the new ones are forming that next spring. Not really a great time of year to prune something like that. The entire cycle is over 12 months long. So if you've got room for them, you know, just allowing them to grow is the best idea to get the best impact, overall impact for the pollinators in the spring, and then the berries for the birds later in the winter. But 2 Nellie R. Stevens hollies turned into lollipops.
Hanging out in the ground cover realm with my choices, but I just love what Ram does with combining textures and colors. So my second choice is the Japanese painted fern. It's a fern, 12 to 18 inches, likes evenly moist soil, tolerant of some wetness. Such a great texture and color. Just that blue-green foliage combines so well with hostas. We've got the strawberry begonia that I mentioned before. Look at that. That is just amazing. Other ferns, on the other side of you, there's sweet box. So sarcococa, it can be blended with the dwarf sarcococa and looks so gorgeous. It's just such a beautiful plant. One of the great things about it is that it tends to be deer resistant and rabbit resistant. So if you're concerned about that, it's a great asset. Hardy to like zones 3 to 9, but if you want to be careful, you can be super okay with zones 4 to 8. So what a beautiful contrast of in a shade garden where sometimes things get dark and you want to put something that sort of shines lighter. Japanese painted fern will do it.
Apparently I only look up and Steph only looks down, because everything all of 5 of mine I think are going to be all large shrubs, tree-formed shrubs or trees that you'll see. This is a kind of an interesting little spot here. She has 3 viburnum planted together, and I don't know if this was with intent or not, but this is Viburnum plicatum, which is the Japanese snowball viburnum. Okay, you see the foliage on that. It's very similar to our Shasta viburnum at the house. So it's also a variety of Viburnum plicatum. But this is the Japanese snowball viburnum. It's on its way out. The other 2 have already finished. This is Viburnum opulus, which is it's sterile, which is the eastern snowball, people call it. It's done blooming. They're in a lot of shade in here, and I think that Japanese snowball is getting a little bit more sun than the others, so I don't know that this one bloomed as well, but this is Viburnum opulus, which eastern snowball, Japanese snowball, and behind it, back there, bloomed out, is Viburnum macrociphalum, which is the Chinese snowball, which has the larger of the snowball viburnum that's right behind it. But I just kind of find it's funny that there's 3 of them here. Because there's 3 of them here, this one probably blooms the earliest. Then the Chinese snowball blooms second, and then the Japanese snowball blooms third. So this area would have had these snowball viburnum flowers for weeks and weeks and weeks over here. It's just an interesting little spot that I've noticed. I noticed it last year when we were here, but I had not been here when one of them was flowering. We're a little late on 2 of them, but one of them still showing some color here.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I could pick either one of these plants because I am very fond of evergreen Clemetus, Clamatus, whichever one you want to say. I'm very fond of it. I think it's such gorgeous, fragrant, classically beautiful plant for a vine. It's just wonderful. And we just planted one on the chain link fence on one side of our house. So I've been waiting for one for a long time, and I'm really excited to get one. And apparently it comes in, you can get a pink as well. And I've seen it, but the white is perfectly beautiful to me. But I'm really going to talk about the 5-leaf akebia, or chocolate vine. And the reason I'm going to talk about this is that my love of plants kind of at first came from my relationship with my father. So when I see plants that make me think of him, I love it. We had in North Raleigh a 5-leaf akebia, or chocolate vine, on a structure, and it was in very deep shade. This plant, you know, will prefer some sun, really, but it can tolerate deep shade. You won't get as many blooms, obviously, but it does get sort of a plum-colored, fragrant bloom on it in the spring on old wood, so you would prune after it's done blooming. And if you didn't prune those flowers, you might end up getting some fruit as well. I love this plant. It's really, it can be invasive apparently, but you know, we never had that problem, especially in the deep shade. It didn't go very far, very fast, but it was just a beautiful plant that makes me think of my father. It's tolerant of the clay soils, it's tolerant of drought, some wetness, shade, sun, deer tolerant. It's a pretty amazing plant. So I am going to say that my third choice is going to be the chocolate vine right here.
Number 4 for me has to be this big leaf magnolia. This is Magnolia Macrofila, native to the southeast United States and over into eastern Mexico. It's actually in kind of disjointed pockets, actually. A lot more of them in Louisiana and Mississippi than other places, but there's actually a little pocket in Wake County where we are in Raleigh that apparently these were as well originally found. This is what we would call a large understory tree. So it can reach over 50 feet in height, you know, in time. And so at some point it's not even an understory tree once it reaches a certain height, but typically an understory tree, really these giant, almost comical size leaves on it that can be, you know, 2 feet this way, you know, or more, and, you know, more than 12 inches in width. It's just absolutely incredible. Flowers can be 16 inches across. Reports of ones that have 20-inch wide flowers on them. It's a deciduous tree, and it will leaf out as the flowers are starting to form as well. And so these big giant leaves unfold basically, and then this flower bud starts to open, and we're filming this right at the end of April. So they're gonna flower sometime now for several weeks. There's lots of flower buds on this one up there. Once they get to this height, it's a little hard for humans to enjoy the flowers because they're pointing straight up. So we can see these comical sized leaves on it, but we really can't see all the working parts of the flowers. Like other magnolias, it's beetle pollinated, which is super interesting. These flowers will sometimes close up a little bit at night and trap those beetles inside if they were, you know, if they were in there. It'll form a cone where the seeds come, just like other magnolias do. This is one of the most earliest lineage of flowering plants. And so it's kind of a mashup between a flowering plant, because it obviously has those big, beautiful, fragrant white flowers, and a conifer, where the seeds are formed in a cone. And so those two things, you can see, you know, when you can actually see the evolution of flowering plants as they, you know, left conifers and became what they are now. But this is kind of the middle, the intersection of the two things. But an unbelievable plant. We have one. We actually bought it from Piccadilly Farms here in the Athens area. Ours is about this tall. And the one at Rams here is probably in the neighborhood of, what would you say, Steph, 35 feet or so, something like that at this point.
I'm sitting here in such a beautiful space, and you can probably see the koi behind me, just so beautiful. But I'm still looking downward as Jim's looking upward. I'm looking at this creeping raspberry here. It's in the rose family, but it's a raspberry group, genus. It's creeping raspberry is a ground cover raspberry. Normally, I mean, they say that the flowers are inconspicuous, but I think this is lovely and notable. After these white flowers are over, you will get actual fruit. And interestingly, the fruit on the creeping raspberry looks like the same structure of the fruit on blackberries and raspberries, and each one of those little round structures is a fruit. So even though we think of that whole piece of fruit as a piece of fruit, it's a whole bunch of pieces of fruit. Such a beautiful plant. I mean, you've got great color, lush green, versus the great texture of the ruffly kind of leaves. You can see it right next to the, oh golly.
Acorus?
Acorus.
Yeah.
Ooh, I blanked on the name of that one. But you can see it contrasts great in this garden. It likes dappled shade versus part shade and sun. Deep shade is not going to do as well, but it's a great plant to combine for great texture. It's tolerant of poor conditions. It's deer tolerant, and it is tolerant of drought. So such a beautiful plant. And you know, it's hardy zones 6 to 9 or 7 to 9, depending on the resource. And I think in zone 6, it might tend to lose some of its leaves. I know we had a quick cold spurt this past winter, and our creeping raspberry completely defoliated, but it came back big and strong this spring. So you might lose a little bit of the foliage in some of the lower zones. If you do retain your foliage, it tends to get a bronzy, kind of burgundy brown hue to it. So it's a 4-season plant, and just a beautiful spiller. You can use it in, I know I've used it in containers before as well, and you can see how it spills over into the water here. It just makes such a beautiful statement in this incredibly lush garden.
We've been to this garden many times over the years, but we've never actually been during the spring and seen it in flower. But we have been here when this Japanese persimmon had fruit, mature fruit on it, and that was last year, and it's like candy. If you've never had a mature, ready-to-eat persimmon, that's very important. They're very stringent before they're ready. If you eat one before it's ready to be eaten, it'll turn your face inside out. But these are like candy, absolutely like candy. This is a pretty large specimen. I guess this one's probably 25 to 30 feet tall at this point. Really just a pretty tree in general. They tend to grow about as wide as they do tall, so you need some width, you need some space for it. And the branches tend to weep down over time, so it does require some limbing up or some space where you can really allow it to get bigger in time. They bloom super heavily in the spring, and so many flowers that typically it's more fruit than the tree can actually bear. So it will once these start to form, it will start to thin out. I will show you, which is kind of interesting. The female flowers are white or yellow, so bees come along and pollinate it. And despite the fact that this is a Japanese plant or an Asian plant, the native pollinators are all over it. There's native bees on this all day long. We were here yesterday afternoon. It's a little cloudy, overcast this morning, so I don't see any bees on it right now, but the bees were all over it. It's just swarming with them. With or without flowers, with or without fruit, this tree is beautiful. This foliage is unbelievable, and it looks this good all the way until the fall. Really great tree. Of course, we have a native persimmon to the southeast United States as well, and used to trick my friends as a kid into eating them before they were ready, because it really is a very strange thing that happens when you put one in your mouth before it's ready before it's mature. There you go. There's my number 5 plant, this incredible Japanese persimmon, which we've never actually caught in flower. Again, there's so many flowers on that. There's no possibility this plant could hold this many fruit up, and so it will go through this thing where it will start to form all these fruits, and then at some point it'll be dry enough, hot enough, something will happen. It'll lose probably half of them between now and the time they start maturing. Sometime late summer, early fall, some of them, they'll be ready to harvest.
My last plant, I'm going to show you Alstraia. A lot of us are used to seeing Alstraia in bouquets. It's a great floral industry plant. Usually they can grow between 1 foot tall to 4 feet tall, and I'm gathering that the 4-footers are probably the ones most often used in the floral industry. All of us pretty much around here can plant some sort of Alstraia in our gardens. It's got great texture and great color. It's sort of a blue-green color. It's just gorgeous. And in the summer into the fall, a very long bloom season. You can get it in whites and yellows and reds and burgundies and pinks. All sorts of colors. Alstraia is a gorgeous plant. You see it here growing all around little leaf euonymus and a larger leaf euonymus, and ardesia, another great ground cover. The interesting thing about ardesia versus the Alstraia right next to it, the ardesia is going to prefer more shade. The Alstraia, we've got it in some dappled shade, so it's doing okay. Probably won't bloom quite as well. but it's going to like a little more sun as well. It's a great plant. It does start moving. The root system will sort of crawl its way further and further, and you can see it's on its way right here. But it's beautiful. You've got gorgeous foliage and a very long bloom season. It's a beautiful plant, and that's my fifth and final choice. Thank you guys for listening, and hopefully we'll come back later this year and show you 10 more plants that we love that are doing something different in a different month.